All
Better.
good.
Okay, good.
Marvelous. Okay. Good. Okay. So it's a little bit more informal this week, or this month. I'm going to start off with a question that Renee had. Is Renee actually online? Let's have a quick look. Yes, she is.
Yes, she is.
Hello, Renee. So Renee's questions, they're twofold. So I'm just going to read you this little post that Renee put there today, or a couple of days ago. She said, "This industry is super competitive, which makes me push harder to become a better voiceover talent. I'm happy with the leftovers that major talents don't audition for. However, I'm not even hired for the scraps." This is a two-part question then. Number one, do I need to find a niche voice, i.e. one or two sounds I'm really good at, or should I be a jack of all trades and have a large resume of voices? Peter, I'll hand this one to you.
Well, first of all, thank you. Hello, everyone. There's 15 of us in the forum today, which is great to see you all, or not even see you, but know you're there and listening. And hello to Renee, and thank you for the question, Renee. Renee is in Los Angeles, one of our American friends, and she's asked this question. And it's actually a very, very good question indeed. The question is really, should you, as a voice artist, be a jack of all trades and a master of none? It's actually quite a difficult question to answer, but because everyone, at the end of the day, is different. You are different from me and any other voice artist. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. But I think if we look at it historically, if we take the extreme examples, for example, a voice artist like the late great Mel Blanc, who was the voice of Bugs Bunny and Wile E. Coyote, and he was an amazing voice artist who specialized in animation. I don't think that you would have hired Mel Blanc to read your corporate narration or an industrial narration piece, or even a documentary or a movie trailer. You hired Mel because his signature work was his work as an animation voiceover artist, and he was very, very good at it, and he dominated that market for a good number of decades. Likewise, someone like, again, another very famous American voice artist like Don LaFontaine. Don was hired and became the master of the movie trailer. And he, in his time, recorded hundreds of thousands of movie trailers and became known for his signature sound. And the word signature sound is very important here, because I think before you do anything, you've got to find out who you are. And being in front of a microphone is a very unreal experience. You are, by definition, sitting in a studio with a microphone pointing at your face with a script, and you are in a very unnatural environment. Now, the trick with being hired as a voiceover artist, I think, is to be known and have and develop a signature sound. Because over the years I've done this work, I've found that the more of you that shows up in your performance, the more you will earn and the more you will be hired. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't then go on and bolt on top of that signature sound of yours other talents, like, for instance, being a movie trailer voice, or a cartoon voiceover, or industrial or corporate films, or promo, whatever it is you want to do. These are, I liken it to kind of like a quiver of arrows. In that quiver, you've got several arrows, and each of those arrows you fire out there, and that could be your experience as an expertise as a movie trailer voice, or as a cartoon voice, or whatever. Each of those arrows is its own speciality, but at the bottom of that quiver is your voice, the voice that must show up when you are doing straight reads, and that's the most important voice that you have in your armory. In my view, work on your signature sound, and you will become authentic, or you will be authentic. You will be hired for being authentic. You will sound real, and that's what basically narration and in narration and also in trailer voices. That's who they want to see. That's what they want to hear. So be aware of that very important thing. Develop your own signature sound and try and show up as you in as many performances as you can. Most of you will be aware that there are obviously lots of genres that pertain to voiceover, and I think that not all voiceover artists will be particularly adept or even suitable for all of them. So if you feel uncomfortable about doing character voices, for instance, or you feel that it's not your forte, and then there's no need to feel that you're half a voiceover artist, for instance. You can have a great career just being you. Now, in Renee's particular case, I think, Renee, you've got a really, really great signature sound. It's very unique. Your voice is actually very unique. You sound like nobody else. And I think you've got to really focus in on that and, really develop the ability to create you in every performance that you give, or be you in every performance that you give. And so when you're creating your demo reel, I think you should do a lot more of what you've done in the few demos that you've put up on the forum for us. I think you need to work on your pausing. You need to work on your emphasis. Your reads need to flow a lot more. So I think basically, if you can develop that signature sound, because you've got a really great voice, but you need to really still work on how to use it. So working on that is what I would suggest be your prime goal. And the only way to do that is to read lots out loud, record, review, practice, and lots of practice and preparation gives you a brilliant performance at the end of the day. So if you're thinking that, my character voices aren't that great, it's maybe something you want to work on, but it's not necessarily the end of the day if you don't want to do that. So I would suggest that you work on your main read in this instance, because that is a great voice that you have, and it's a very hireable voice for, I think, prestige brands in particular would really like the sound of your voice. But you've really got to work on how to use it properly. So those are my sort of thoughts on whether you should be a master of
Thanks, Peter.
or of all trades. And certainly there are no hard and fast rules, but I think start off by working on your own signature sound, getting that nailed, and then if you think that you're going to be able to or want to do other things, then look at each individual genre, movie trailer, promo, narration, whatever it might be, and work on that. But this is a lifelong, really a lifelong sort of project. It's not something that you can really develop and master in a few weeks or even months. This is years and years of doing it. I learn something new every day. So I don't think, I certainly don't feel as if I've mastered everything. Certainly haven't. And so I'm continually in an educational sort of mode, if you like. I'm learning all the time. And I listen and watch how other people do it. And we all learn from each other at the end of the day. So I think, keep that in mind. It's not something you're going to master immediately. It's something that's going to take a long time. But it's hopefully you'll have fun along the way. Those are my thoughts. Anyway, Hugh.
Good, thank you. Just coming back to some points you made there, Peter. I think most people on here know you for the X Factor, and would therefore presume that is your signature sound. Being a little bit older and from the UK, I kind of remember you from things like The Price is Right and or even older shows than that, I suppose. So what would you say is your signature sound, and how did you get that? Because obviously the X Factor thing came a lot after that.
Well, of course, you mentioned two big entertainment shows on TV, The X Factor and Price is Right. Those were the voices that I used on those shows were, if you like, they're kind of character voices in a way. They're extensions of my own voice, obviously, because it's my voice, but they are overlaid on top of that. I create a character to go with that particular show. My own sort of signature voice, I think, is my own speaking voice, the one I'm speaking to you in now. And that's the voice that I would use on industrial narration and corporate narration and documentaries, for instance. So that's really, that's the trick, really. It sounds beguilingly simple. And it should be, but for many people struggle with sounding natural in front of a microphone. It's a very unnatural thing to do. I think what helps and what might help you is that if you were to forget about the microphone, or even make the microphone your friend, and imagine your friend is sitting in front of you and the microphone is your friend's ear, and you're talking that close to your friend about something, then you get out of your head all that technical gubbins. Is the level right? Am I recording this? Is it sounding okay? Do I sound okay? All these kind of questions that go on inside your head as you're reading a piece of copy, you really want to aim to eliminate from your thinking, because what you should be thinking about are the words in front of you, and not about whether I'm sounding okay, or what I'm going to have for tea that evening, or even, am I sounding deep or not so deep? It's got to be a very simplistic process, that you are talking one-to-one to another person. That's really what you've got to get into your head. So talking to your best friend about whatever it is you're reading about is really the kind of feeling you've got to have in your head as you do it. Hugh, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just to pick up on that as well, we've had quite a few. Yeah, we've had quite a few people this month, when I've been listening to their clips, who are tending to be too staccato, too worried about their diction, and so they end up talking a little bit like that because they're watching everything that they say. And it's worth reiterating, I think, that the fashion or the trend in current voiceover is really about realistic dialogue. So rather than being inch perfect 1950s BBC presenter, nowadays it's more like actually talking to somebody face to face and seeing the whites of their eyes. Now you also have to get the diction in there as well, and that's where the professional and the part comes in, and the practice stuff comes in as well. But it's all about real dialogue. So when you're doing commercial VO especially, and it's always commercial VO that seems to suffer, try and imagine that you're actually looking into the whites of someone's eyes and just talking to them and selling them this product, as opposed to being a voiceover person and thinking about how a voiceover person would do it, which always comes across sounding like you're kind of reading, which I think is a bit of an issue. Anyway, let's move on to Renee's second point. Also, Jonathan, this isn't actually really about Renee. This is just a general question, even the first one as well. But her second question was, at what point do you say to yourself after several unsuccessful auditions, maybe I don't have what it takes in this business? I tend to be very stubborn and will do what it takes to achieve my goal, but sometimes I'm ready to say enough already, too much rejection. What do you think about that, Peter? I suppose that's more of a kind of formative stage, isn't it?
Well, gosh, if rejection bothers you, Renee, or anybody else listening, and this isn't the game for you, really, it's rejection is what every one of us have to go through every single day. Not just voice actors, but actors in general. When you're casting for a role, be it for a film or a play, or in our case, a commercial, or whatever it might be, you've got to really have a very thick skin in this business, because you will be rejected more than you're hired. And that's just because it's a numbers game. And, there are so many voice artists out there of varying experience and talent. And for any one job, there could well be 10, 20, even hundreds of potential voices auditioning for the role. And so, looking at those numbers, you've got to realize that there's only one job, one voice being hired. There's going to be, 10, 20, 30, 100 people who are going to be disappointed. The rejection is not personal. And, they're not rejecting you as a person. I'm a nice guy. Renee, I'm sure you're really lovely. But they're not rejecting you personally. You've got to really bear that in mind. I'm sure you know that anyway. But it is, in the early stages of a career, quite hard to deal with that. I do actually admit that it is difficult to deal with. And there will be times when you think that maybe this is the wrong choice of career. This isn't for me. I'm not getting the work. I'm not being hired. I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not good enough. and these thoughts go around in your mind, and if you let them take hold in your head, the negative thoughts, they will eventually become your reality in the external world. So by thinking that you're not good enough, or by thinking that your performance isn't right, or you've given a bad audition, you will it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, in a way, that you become that your career then starts to go into a downward spiral. That's what you have to avoid, and you just have to keep hold of positive thought, imagine yourself as being that person that you want to become, that voice artist, that artist that you know you can be, and to try and remain in that positive frame of mind at all times. Easier said than done, but it's something you have to do with practice, and rejection certainly comes at every turn. The other good thing that you can actually get from rejection is if you ask the producer or the person who you are auditioning for. Not all of them will tell you, of course, because it's also a time-consuming business for them to reply to everyone who asks, but not everybody does. Just ask them, why did I not get that role? What did I do wrong? What could I improve next time on if I was to do this again, for instance? What did you not like about my audition? Feedback is very, very important, and if you ask politely and nicely, 99% of the time people will tell you why you didn't get the role or why you didn't get the job. In some cases they won't. They just don't have the time to answer those questions. But it's always worth asking, in the hope that you'll get an answer that will maybe point you in the right direction. So practice. Get used to rejection because it's part of the job. Learn, revise your demos. Listen to other people's work hugely. Do that all the time. Go on to other agents' websites and listen to other actors and other artists, how they are presenting themselves. Listen to a wide range of output on TV and radio in the commercial breaks. Get a feel for what's out there, what kind of voices are now working and getting all the work. It's different in every market. In America and in UK, it's slightly different, but the general trend, I think, is towards regional accents, characterful voices, people with who sound authentic. In America, I do know the trend is towards Hispanic-sounding voices. So if you're an Hispanic voiceover in America, guess what? This is your lucky decade because you're going to get more and more work. So I think it's just a question of listening, being sensitive, and learning from what other people are doing, not necessarily copying what other people are doing, but listen to the trends, listen to how people are presenting themselves and how the market is going. And if you can do that and get used to rejection, and keep going, you'll eventually get there. Believe me, you will eventually get there because, you put in the effort, you get the result at the other end. But it's not for the faint-hearted, but I think it's certainly worth pursuing and persisting with. And good luck to each and every one of you in this endeavour, because it is a struggle. It is a difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. You'll get lucky breaks along the way, though, and that will give you second wind to keep going. But hopefully you'll get there in the end and enjoy a nice long career doing this work, because it's worth doing. Great fun.
Thank you, Peter. I just want to pick up on that a little bit about rejection and how to deal with it. And the point that Peter made about the fact that you can sometimes think it's actually all about you. This week I've done a casting for a game which is the Rugby World Cup for Electronic Arts. And that specific role, I can see there's one or two people on here actually on the list who applied for it as well. It was for a male presenter role. That specific role, I didn't actually put the casting net super far this time, but I still had 80 or 90 people apply for it. And when I did the casting earlier on, just today, the actual listening through everything before I sent it off to the client, I shortlisted 13 people who I thought were great, who really did a good casting, and who just hit the nail, who got to the top of the pile by really capturing the essence of what it's like to be in a rugby game. It's not just about the actual style of voice, it's about the whole clip as well. But that's 13 people. So there wasn't just one person, i.e. the person who will end up getting this job. That's now out of my hands. So those 13 shortlisted people have been sent to the client and I will hear back as to which one they like. I have my recommendations in there, but what's actually happened there is what is that? Something like 18%, 19, 20%, something like that of clips were really good. So even though the 12 people who I shortlist but don't get picked won't get the job, they still did all the right things. It's just that they weren't absolutely perfect for it. They still did the right things. They still provided a good casting clip. Their performance was good. Everything about the clip was good. As I recall, almost everybody got the file name structure and the slating right. So everything was really good. It's just that sometimes you're not going to get the work, and it isn't about you. So when you're doing casting, to answer your question, Renee, it's almost as much about volume as it is getting the, and when I say volume, I mean the amount of work you're applying for, as it is the performance that you're giving. Obviously, the performance has to be as good as you can do in all of them, but there's no point just doing one casting on the first of the month and then sitting back with your hands crossed watching TV until you hear back from that one. You want to be doing 5, 6, 7 a day, and the work will come to you. And then as you build up your portfolio, you'll have jobs that come to you that aren't like this one, where someone will just come to you direct and said, do you know what, you did a great job for us on that other title or whatever it was. Could you spare 5 minutes to do this one as well, which will lead to other work. So it's not all just about cold casting, which is actually quite a difficult environment to work in. But even the cold casting and stuff, I mean, someone was saying to me the other day about how much should I be spending on subscription sites, because there's quite a lot of subscription sites out there. And if you think you're paying, I don't know, something along the lines of £50 a month for one subscription site, for example, or, I mean, they all vary, don't they? Or maybe a couple of $100 a year, something like that. If you're spending $1,000 to $2,000 a year on subscription sites, in my mind, that's, well, A, it's a tax deductible benefit, but B, that's a necessary evil. That's a necessary expenditure to be getting access to all of the jobs that are going at the market, and then apply for all of them en masse in as good a quality as you can. Because if you're, I mean, you'd only need 3 or 4 jobs a year to easily go past that sort of payment, and actually getting more and more work and more casting opportunities is really what you want. So I think apply for all of them if you've got the cash to do it. Maybe you have to build it up if you're not really cash flow rich, but that's what I would advise as a professional VO. Long term, you really should be on all of them until you've got yourself into a position like Peter has, where you don't really need to go looking for casting. So that was my comment on that. Does anybody have any questions? Actually, I can just see one there from Andrew. It was not via the EVMF. How do I offer new work? That one was via my own personal casting list that I have of people that I really rate, which I've built up over the last 7 or 8 years, something like that. So very few people get on that list, and also nobody knows who's on it apart from me. So it's not the kind of list you apply for. It's just my own personal list. And then the other place was the British Voiceovers Facebook group, and I put it on there specifically because it was a British voice that we're looking for. So there wasn't really any sense in me putting it on all the other voiceover groups or going to all the subscription sites where things get kind of diluted. This one specifically was quite niche. I usually cast either through agents or subscription agents, and also those 2 other places that I was talking to you about there. So I'm going to let Peter answer your question there, Renee, as we go. So the next thing I wanted to just do was move on to Adobe Audition. Now, this isn't really audition specific. This came from a conversation that I had with Nikki Thomas about backing your work up as you record. So if we go back even one step further, back to the home recording studio course, there are 2 ways to record and edit audio. The first one is destructively, and the second one is non-destructively. So if we take a program like Sony SoundForge or the waveform editor of Adobe Audition, or Twisted Wave, GarageBand, any of these kind of programs, What actually happens is you record the audio into one container, and if you then edit within that container after saving it, it destructively edits the file. So what do I mean by that? Well, you close the file and it's actually amended that individual file itself. Okay, so the next time you load it up from fresh or you send the file to somebody else, they'll load it up and it will be as you've edited it. That's destructive editing. The other type is non-destructive editing. So if you take something like Cubase or Pro Tools, which are DAWs or multi-track recordings where you have more than one track at a time, and the multi-track part of Audition, also the editor in GarageBand and some other programs as well, like Logic and things like that. You have multiple tracks of audio, and if you make edits within those views, in the multi-track view, then what it does is it plays back and remembers the bits that you've put in there. Either, you know, there could be delays or reverbs or actual edits or fades or crossfades, but it doesn't actually change the source audio recording that you made. So that's non-destructive editing. So if you then send that that original source audio to somebody else, they will open it up and it will still have all of the things that you've edited out in it. And the way to get it into a format that's edited as an individual audio is to bounce it down or to create a mix down. So that is non-destructive editing. So we have destructive editing, non-destructive editing, and then the question came about backups. Because if you record a piece of dialogue and then you edit it destructively, you can't go backwards from that. So what you might have done, for example, as we were talking about with Nikki, is you might have de-breathed some audio and then reduced the gap, as Peter recommends, but you might have gone too far with it. And then you might have closed the file down and come back to it, and you can't undo it anymore. So actually what's happening there is you can't go back, and you would have to re-record that or artificially create some space or something like that, which doesn't always sound great. Or you might have edited out a click and not realized that you've put another click in by mistake, or any number of reasons, or you've taken too much of a sibilant S out or something like that. So the idea is that you want to be able to back up as you go, and then you want to be able to bounce down and give the client a mixed down version. But if they come back to you and say, okay, I need to this, that, or the other change, you've always got the source audio to play with. So hopefully that all makes sense so far. What I'm going to do now, the last time I've done this was not without its trauma, so hopefully this won't take too long. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually show you on my desktop what happens with Adobe Audition so that you can see it in action. So bear with me a second while I try and get this working. Okay, so you should all be able to see that. Peter, if you can just verbally let me know.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so what we have here, this is Audition in its waveform mode. So I'm going to create a new file. In fact, I'm just going to close this one first so that we don't... there we go. So I'm going to create a brand new file. This is a new audio file. Okay, this one happens to be, let's call that test, happens to be at 48 kilohertz, 24-bit mono. We always want to be in mono when we're recording the sound.
Yeah,
so what I'm going to now do...
important to remember that, Hugh, isn't it? I think we've had a few people sending in voice demos or voice tracks to us in stereo, which is not necessary when you're just recording yourself.
Absolutely. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to record some audio in here. So if you just bear with me a second. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 4. Okay, so you should be able to see the audio on screen there. Now, if I save that, and this is test.wav, then what I actually have there is the audio file, and I can play that back. And again, Peter, if you could tell me if you can hear this, just so that I know.
No, we're not getting that. I can't hear that playing back.
Did you all hear that?
No.
Oh dear.
No.
No, okay. Well, I don't have time to replumb the list then, unfortunately, but you'll have to take my word for it that I've basically said 1, 2, 3, 4 there. So I'll make the edit so that you can see them a little bit more sweeping. So if I now go into the multi-track view, which is basically a list of tracks like this, what I can do is I can drag that audio file in here, and you should be able to see that in here as we stand there. Now this is the point where Nikki was getting confused, I think, and a lot of people do, is that currently in this view, whatever we do is non-destructive. So if I go and change that like that and reduce some space, and I play this back. Okay, well, for those of you, obviously all of you can't hear it, that says 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I go back to the waveform view, then what we still have here is the 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and then the preamble rubbish that I did there. So in order to back this up, what I do is in the waveform view, not the editor, is I do a save as, and I'm going to call this test backup. Okay, so that's test backup there. And now I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the multi-track view and see what's in there. Okay, so this actual file there is the test file originally that I put in there. Okay, it's still got all of its files. That's in the editor. So now what I want to do is go back to the multi-track, and I want to go back to the editor, and I want to actually make an edit to this file itself, and I'm going to delete everything out of here. Okay, so that file basically has nothing in it, and then I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to go back to the multi-track, and what this has done, because I did a save as, you can see that it's actually removed everything, because this is now actually the test backup file. So what I would need to do is I'd need to file and open recent, the actual file that I had previously. Where have I put that? Here it is. And then that is the one that needs to go into the actual multi-track itself. So that's a bit of a convoluted way of doing it, because what I actually have done there is I've put it into the multi-track, and I've then had to start again. In actual fact, the easiest way to do this is to go to the file itself in your Explorer, and then find the file, and then literally just do a copy and then paste. So I wanted to actually illustrate that, just to show you that actually if you do a save as, and I think this is where Nikki was getting into trouble, she was saving it as something else, and then in the actual editor window it was changing it, which is kind of not what she wanted. So the best way to do it is either to is to not put these back into the beginning of the file as you do it, but do the backup first. So for example, if I go back to the waveform view, I've got my test here and my test backup. Test was the original recording, and then I do a save as, and then start with a clean multi-track, and then pull things in. Is really the simplest way to do things. Obviously I don't want to use that one because it's not the one I need. And then you can do anything else that you normally would do within a multi-track. So for example, I could put in a music track that comes along with that. It's a shame you don't have audio with me here, because you'd be listening to talking heads going along there, which would have been great. Or you could do anything like putting in, I don't know, effects or something. So we have the effects rack here. So I could put in a compressor, nice little 2-to-1 compressor there in the effects rack. And then I could also put in something like I don't know, a chorus or a flanger or an echo or anything you want to put in really, and build up the effects rack like that. That's obviously on track 1 there, and then track 2. So if we go back to track 1, you can see the effects rack, and if I go to track 2, then maybe I could put something else in, like some reverb, for example. So that's basically how you do it, and that's kind of how you multi-track. There's obviously a huge different kind of array of things that you can go and do to be able to have different types of mixing, editing. The point is that what you don't want to do is you don't want to edit clicks in this view here, because it's very, very, very difficult to do it. So you have to zoom in on a kind of a very convoluted way. It takes an awful long time, and then you have to end up getting your little slice tool here, and then zooming in even further with another little slice, and then it's very, very difficult to edit in Audition that way. What you want to do is go back to the original source file by right-clicking and edit source file, and that'll just come up at the same point in Audition as you found that your click is, or your breath is, or anything like that. So the rule is record the file, then go back and save it as, and then just import one of the files into your multi-track window, and then you will always be able to back up with the original recording should you ever need it, and you can destructively edit the one that you did the save as that's now in your multi-track view. The other way to do it, of course, is to before you make any destructive edits, is to go and completely copy and actually back up the entire project folder as a whole, and then you've always got the entire mix and the non-destructive edits that you haven't yet done to go back and edit as well if you want to. So they're the two ways to do it. Peter, I'm just going to hand over to you while I manage to get back into the window.
Yeah, that's all very good advice, Hugh. What I do is exactly what you just said at the end there. Whenever I record my own projects, what I do is I finish recording and I save that file as a save as something, give it a name, and save it in my my hard drive. I know that's safe, and then I can create another copy of that, if you like, and call it something else. And that's the one I work on. And if I screw it up so badly that I've lost something destructively that I didn't want to lose, I always know there's always the comfort that you can go back to the original version that you produced earlier at the very first stage. So keeping a copy of the original file is my absolute best advice, and I think that's one that will, you'll be grateful you did when you come to it. How many times have Hugh and I have recorded things and realized that we didn't have copies, and we've been distraught because you've lost something that you really didn't mean to lose, or you have a computer crash or a power outage or whatever it might be. So always make copies of whatever it is you're doing, and you'll never go wrong. Yes, we have a couple of questions there about I think it was let's have a look. Rondlin asked a question about what kind of software he would recommend, or we would recommend, because he has Pro Tools Express and has had difficulty in learning how to use that. I haven't used Pro Tools Express. I've seen Pro Tools used in pro studios all over the world. It's very much the working tool of audio engineers the world over, but I haven't personally used it. It is a complicated program, and for single voice recording or very simple mixing music sound effects in a single voice, it's rather like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, frankly. There's a lot of it you won't use ever. However, I've just recommended that as you're on a Windows platform, Audition is very intuitive, the one you've just seen Hugh using. Or if you just want a simple single voice recording window, I think Audacity is probably pretty good to start on. Although exporting the files in various formats can be a little bit clumsy, because there's a sort of stage process you have to go through to export the files. I think you will
I'm back, by the way.
will advise me on that, but I think you do need, with Audacity, sort of other software to convert the files to MP3, for instance. But Audacity is pretty good.
I'm sorry, I missed the question there, Peter. Could you reply it for me?
Just using. We're just talking about what platforms to use. Rondland's using a Windows computer. Currently got Pro Tools Express on, and he says it's quite difficult to use. I was just saying I've never used Pro Tools Express. Yep. I've seen Pro Tools used. It's pretty much standard the world over. But can you suggest any other simpler programs that he could use on a Windows computer, for instance?
Well, Pro Tools being a multi-track recorder is the point here I think we need to worry about. Pro Tools is difficult. It's industry standard because it used to be hardware specific, so you had to buy a big Neve or Pro Tools mixing desk or something like that to actually run the Pro Tools software, and the Pro Tools software was actually free and they made their money in the hardware. As the world has changed, that's no longer the case, and you can do anything with anything. And in fact, Avid, who now own Pro Tools, have realized this and have started charging for the software. It's very unuser friendly, Pro Tools, I'm afraid, and there's not an awful lot you can do to get around it. It's built around an existing recording studio environment, so it actually looks like a recording studio, whereas if you go to the latest versions of things like Cubase or even Audition, there it just doesn't. It's unnecessary, and the steps to do it are convoluted because it's based on how you used to actually plug with things like this, little patch cables, about how you used to actually plug things into each other, and that's kind of how Pro Tools works. It's not anything to do with Windows or Mac in terms of which computer is better. Personally, I use PCs and Macs here. There are, I mean, for VOs really, if you're kind of low on cash, I would recommend Adobe Audition if you only have the money to buy one. If you have both, then I would recommend Cubase for your multi-track and Sony SoundForge on a PC only for your editor. It's incredibly powerful on a PC. On a Mac, I would go with Audition because that has multi-track and it also has your editor, as you've just seen in there. So then there are things like Audacity and Twisted Wave. Audacity is free and it's very much an entry-level thing. If you're a professional, as well as I am, using Audacity just isn't very intuitive. It doesn't have graphical interfaces for things like compressor graphs and things like that, which make it really, really hard to use. It also has issues where the startup, although you can change it, the startup scale is broken, whereas the decibel scale goes above 0, which is just insane. But you can actually change that. But it's got lots of things that will trip up people who aren't very experienced editors. So you will end up tripping yourself up, and it's kind of, if you have to use it because you don't have the money, then use them. If you've got the money, then definitely do. Peter's a big fan of Twisted Wave. I'm not a huge fan of Twisted Wave, mainly because I'm so much of a fan of Audition and SoundForge. So I can't really comment on those. But Pro Tools, I mean, if you go to Europe, for example, all of the studios I interact with in Europe have all moved on to Nuendo, away from Pro Tools. And Nuendo is kind of the big brother of Cubase. It's made by the same company, Steinberg. So that's what I would recommend. So that's kind of where we've got to. Are there any other questions about multi-tracking or backing up audio as you go, which is obviously very important? The next section is really about opening up the floor. We've only got sort of 10 minutes left, so if anybody actually wants to talk and give us a little bit of an insight as to what they're doing, what their experience is, and how they're finding either the EVMF or being a voice artist in general or starting up as a voice artist, then now's your time. Otherwise, any other questions into the bottom, please. And I'll give you guys 30 seconds to kind of catch up and either tell me that you want to come and have a chat on here, or pop a question in there and actually be able to type. And I'll have a drink in the meantime.
Well, Nikki Thomas has asked a question. Nikki asks, can you explain how use fee TV works? How do I know what my studio fee is, and why is the rate based off the studio fee? She goes on to say, how do I know what the TVRs are, and how does it rate internet playing? I find quoting rates for the internet is a grey area. Yes, you and both of us as well. Any base idea on what you charge for a year on the internet, as it can be played anywhere? That is a large question. Yeah, let's start with it. Let's break it down into chunks. Okay. Can I explain how use fee TV works? Well, use fee TV is a publicly available site for voice artists, agents, and agencies to calculate use fees for TV commercials. And it uses a proprietary-based software in the background, which is algorithm-based, to calculate a fee based on what is known as your basic studio fee, your BSF. So your basic studio fee is really what you charge a client for every hour you are working for that client in the booth. So for instance, on a TV commercial, my studio fee, my BSF, my basic studio fee can range from, say, £250 for the hour right up to £450 an hour, depending on what I'm doing. So you take your basic studio fee and you plug that into the use fee TV box, into the right box, and then the use fee TV will ask you which regions the commercial is going on, and also what are the TVRs. Now, TVRs are it's a unitary measurement that, in numeric terms, defines the number of people that will have seen that commercial over the term of its run on TV. So, for instance, if your commercial runs in prime time over 4 weeks and it's got a high rotation, the number of TVRs, which is the number that interacts with your basic studio fee to calculate your use fee, will be quite high. So this is not an easy thing to explain in simple terms, but I think you get the picture that basically you've got your basic studio fee, and the TVRs is a measurement of the number of people who will have seen the commercial over the period of its time on TV. There's a calculation that's performed in the background using those two figures that gives you, in numerical terms, in monetary terms, what your use fee should be for that particular campaign. I hope that answers the question. Insofar as TV goes, internet is not calculated by the use fee TV website, but internet use, well, it's a bit of a grey area. It's one where you really have to kind of barter and work out really if what you've done is going on a website that has millions and millions of hits every day, as opposed to a site that maybe has 250 visits per week. Then you've got to kind of put your finger in the air and say, well, as a rule of thumb, I would say for an average website, I would charge my basic studio fee of, let's say it's £250 or $300-400, and then I would charge 100% of that as a use fee for using that commercial or that particular piece of audio that I had recorded on a website over a period of 12 months, or whatever you decide. There are no hard and fast rules with the internet. It's a bit of the Wild West. So I would say, make a judgment call on whether it's a very big client and whether it's going to get lots of hits and be viewed millions and millions of times, and what the benefit is to the client. Then you could say, well, I'll take my basic studio fee and multiply that by 100%, 200%, 300%, or even 500% over the period of 12 months. After 12 months, you can then review that and renew it, or you maybe want to charge a huge lump sum of, say, 700% of your basic studio fee and call it a buyout. And you wave goodbye to the client and you never hear from them again. And they can use that material for as often as they want. So I would say, I hope that's answered your question. It's quite a big question and we could go into a lot more depth, but basically those are the parameters you should be thinking about.
Good.
Who else?
Thank you, Peter. Okay, then picking up on Renee's question. Renee had said, for online casting, do you send a pristine edited file or do you leave the clicks, pauses, defects and mistakes in? As a casting director, do you prefer edited files or raw files? Okay, well, I'm going to play you two that I got from this rugby demo today. The first one I'm going to play you is from a guy called Louis Chadwick, who's a very good little VO. He's starting out. I know him very well, as does Peter. And just have a listen to his demo. It's a good demo. Have a listen.
Louis Chadwick, rugby demo. And a very warm welcome to today's friendly match between these two teams. And here we go, the first game of the tournament. Here's hoping for a fast, physical, entertaining game.
Peter, could you please put some speakers on because we're getting feedback from you there. Some headphones is what I meant, sorry. Okay, so what you can hear there is that Louis giving a good presentation. He has edited that out. He's taken any clicks and pops out. It's a very well-rounded, kind of on-the-money, hits the brief type of delivery for a casting. I thought that one was very good. I'm not going to play any of the bad ones because I think it's a bit unfair because the people who did the bad ones aren't actually EVMF members and it's not really fair to do it. However, I will play you another one which was from Anthony Rudd. Now, Anthony is one of our EVMF graduates, I suppose you would call him. He's a great voiceover artist. In my opinion, this is what you should be doing to get jobs via live casting, which is what we did today.
Anthony Rudd, rugby demo. And a very warm welcome to today's friendly match between these two teams. And here we go, the first game of the tournament. Here's hoping for a fast, physical, entertaining game. The ground's wet with all the rain, so it's going to be a little slippery underfoot and in hand. Take two. And a very warm welcome to today's friendly match between these two teams. And here we go. The first game of the tournament. Here's hoping for a fast, physical, entertaining game. The ground's wet with all the rain, so it's going to be a little slippery underfoot and in hand. Take three. And a very warm welcome to today's friendly match between these two teams. And here we go. The first game of the tournament. Here's hoping for a fast, physical, entertaining game. The ground's wet with all the rain, so it's going to be a little slippery underfoot and in hand. Okay,
so hopefully you get my point there, that what he's done, and it didn't take him that long to do. I spoke to Anthony this morning. With a little bit of editing practice, you can do that sort of thing in 10 minutes, You give that kind of quality, then it's so much better. Even though Louis was good, it was a good performance, it was strong vocally, it was well projected, he'd edited it all out. What Anthony's done is he's completely put the listener in the frame for it already, and he's as a casting director, you just think, yeah, I can hear this, because it's obvious. He's at a game, you're imagining it with the crowd, and he's done more than he needs to do, which isn't that long. And that's the kind of casting that's going there. And the thing is that the people who don't do this are missing a trick, because 5 out of the 100 are. So if you want to get ahead of the queue and get your chances elevated to getting shortlisted, then that's the kind of thing you want to do. So I hope that helps. Now, Daniel Dawson had also said that he wants to answer a question. Daniel, do you want to actually talk offline? I'm not really sure how. You said it might be a little bit long-winded. We can talk offline, or we can talk online on here. You can actually come on and talk if you've got a webcam ready, or you can actually come on the webcam, or you can just type it into the bottom. It's up to you. I only say this because you said it might be a little bit long-winded. Okay, well let's put you on if you're happy to do that. Let me just enable your microphone. Okay, so your microphone's enabled. So what you have to do at the top, you've got a little microphone button there.
Hello?
Oh, hello. There we go. Hi, Daniel.
Hey. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I've just got quite a few concerns. Voiceover is something that I've only just... Well, I'd say it was about a year ago it started, because I thought... when I was younger, I was interested in acting, and it just wasn't viable. And only recently I've figured out, maybe voiceover could be an alternate path that I could follow. But the problem is, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a very big fan of my voice, and I'm not sure if that's quite a barrier. I don't know if I have a good voice for it or not, or if, I feel comfortable when I'm doing character voices and changing my voice in that kind of way. So I think video games is a big goal for me. I play a lot of video games, and I'm just kind of wondering if it's kind of a pipe dream for me, or if it's something that I can work on and eventually get there.
Okay, Peter, I'll go first. I think you've got quite an obvious issue, which is confidence.
Yeah.
And also maybe a lack of experience about self-recording or actually listening to your own voice. A lot of singers find this when they start singing, when they're in the younger years. People want to be in bands and stuff, and they get a microphone in front of them, and then they've got these huge PA speakers, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my God, I sound terrible." When actually you've got a perfectly pleasant voice. It's hard for me to say whether you have a good voiceover voice, because you're not performing right now as a voiceover artist. You're just talking, and the two are obviously very different. I would say the first thing to do is just start practicing. So record yourself a lot using your own voice, and of course doing character voices if that's what you want to do. And the confidence will come as you hear yourself get better. And obviously Peter and I are there in the EVMF to be able to give you feedback on that. Your voice sounds fine. In actual fact, the trend in the UK is for regional voices, as Peter mentioned earlier. So having a kind of northern accent is a good thing anyway. You just need to refine it and hone it, and then it's really down to you about how much effort you want to put into it. We're quite a big fan of saying that this isn't a route to riches quickly. You have to work at this career. It's not it's not something that overnight is going to land you the X Factor gig.
Yeah.
Peter had 20 years before he was doing that kind of thing. Interestingly, that no one's asked him about that, but there we go. The other thing I think is you mentioned that you've got a penchant for gaming.
Yep.
Well, that's absolutely fine. Game voice, if you haven't looked into it already, is very specific. Although, and actually, there's a very small clique of people doing it. Even now, even though we've been running the Voiceover for Gaming course for the last sort of 3-4 years. We've only trained 300 or 400 people doing that face to face, and then however many online. But even now, there's still a small clique of people doing it, and it's because people don't understand how to do gaming VO, which is very, very specific, and it's not like any other area. So have a look at that course. Either you can either buy the course with a large discount as an EVF member, or there is the subscription zone, which you can also do as well, which makes it quite cheap.
I'm a member of that already.
Right, well, there you go. In that case, you've already got it. So go and have a go on that, and you'll see. But by the time you get halfway through it, you'll see straight away why it's different. Really, I would just say keep up the practice, keep recording yourself, and just get used to your own voice. There's nothing wrong with it. It's in your head that you find that you're uncomfortable with it. I would say. As for your character voices, I've got no idea. Haven't heard them.
Are we low on time, or can I ask something else? Or
no, go for it. Peter can ask something.
Okay, thanks. Basically, another huge concern I've got is I mentioned on-screen acting is something that I can't really do because I've got a disability. And I'm just kind of, I was doing the beginner course. I've only just finished that about a couple of hours ago, and
Yeah.
I noticed because character voices in video games is something I want to do. You were mentioning that when you do those kinds of voices, you want to be stood up or something because then you get more power behind your voice and stuff like that. But it's something that obviously I can't do, and I'm just wondering, would that impact me in any way? And especially geographically, being in Sheffield, am I far away from any opportunities for this kind of voiceover work? Because I feel like I don't have the voice for commercial radio TV kind of work. Maybe I do. I'm just not sure, but I just kind of
I
wonder.
think you don't yet.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering if I'm kind of basically screwed geographically, or if I could still maybe find that kind of work in the north rather than having to go down to London and stuff like that.
Well, you're already
I'll tell you what.
you're already making assumptions about your voice, Daniel. Renee in Los Angeles thinks you have a very nice voice, and
Renee.
so do I actually. I think you've got a voice that, from what I've heard of it so far, sounds like it could be very much in demand and very much in vogue. You've a Sheffield accent, which is would be absolutely perfect voice for certain brands, for instance, and certain channels. I could just hear you as maybe a promo voice on say Dave or on E4 or some of those other channels that are a little grittier, a little bit more real. And as far as your physical location is concerned and your disability is concerned, I would say that insofar as gaming is concerned, game voices, you're right in your assumption that when you do record game voices, they do generally, although Hugh may correct me, they generally tend to want you in the studio where they record everybody else, so that they can get consistency of product. So doing that sort of voiceover from from a remote location such as your home studio may not be practical. Hugh would maybe be able to.
Well, that's not 100% true. Yeah, that's not all. That's not always the case. Jay Britton does a lot of gaming from home, and actually the trend, especially for smaller level games, the trend is going that people don't want to pay the studio fees, so they will do it at home by the internet. I think there's a couple of things to put on here. The first one is that I don't see why a disability should in any way affect anything to do with your voice. In the exact same way, we have the Voiceover for Beginners, a visually impaired version, and we have 3 or 4 people who have taken that course already, who have, as visually impaired people, who have started to try and build themselves up a career. One of the people on there is a person called Peter White, who's actually in the course, and he's been at the BBC for how long, Peter? 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And is an exceptionally gifted voiceover artist. So I don't think it has any relevance at all. As long as you're happy to get to a studio, which I'm sure you could do, then I don't see why that's an issue. And let me look at it this way: Peter is the well, arguably, if not the most sought after voiceover artist in the world, at least in the top 5 for definite. Let's say that Peter, touch wood, I hope he doesn't, but let's say that Peter has a car crash and loses both of his legs.
Right.
I don't see how that would affect his ability to have a perfectly good income in exactly the same way as he is now. It just doesn't change anything.
I think it's just more of a concern
I think
about
it's
travel and how much I'd be needing to do it. Like, I didn't know how many auditions are live auditions or how many I can just do from home. I thought if you're doing
very few
game voices, it might be more live auditions and home auditions.
Not really. I mean, there are. It depends on the game, really. Some are on live situations, but if they're live ones, you've already been through one round of casting, so you've been shortlisted already. So it's worth your while going there, even if you don't get the job.
Yeah.
in general, the model, which is why we've built things like the home recording studio course, is that's all going. It's all being based from your own home studio, and you've got to get a decent home studio setup, like the one that Peter has in the background there. He's actually in his studio in his outbuilding at his house, which is a really very good studio with ISDN and internet capability, and you can do anything from there that he could do anywhere in the world. So yeah, I wouldn't even start to think that would be a barrier. And if it gets to the point where you are having to travel twice a day for that, then you're doing well, so it's worth doing. So I wouldn't worry about it. I would just concentrate on finding out whether you are comfortable in front of a mic first, and how your voice sounds. The only other thing I wanted to pick up on was the Sheffield accent. That's great, and as Peter alluded to, it can be a benefit. If you want a full-time career as a VO, you're going to have to learn other accents as well, in exactly the same way as someone who has a natural RP would have to learn other accents. So it's not... You can have just a career doing your own voice. It's just rare. I mean, all of the people that Peter has mentioned so far, Peter himself, Mel Blanc, the voiceover man in America, they're all character voices. So you're going to have to learn to do other things as well if you want to have a long-term career in it. But that's nothing to do with anything other than your practicing and the amount of time you put into it.
Do you think the accent is something to embrace then? Because it's something I try to mask as much as humanly possible, to be honest.
No, don't mask it. No. Let's go back to what I said earlier in this very seminar. I said, you have got to find your signature voice. That is you, your voice. Be authentic, your authentic you. And that voice you're speaking in now is your authentic you. That's the voice that you need to embrace. That's the one that people will buy because it sounds real. That's and as I said earlier, the more of you, in inverted commas, that shows up in your performance, the more work you'll get because you are real. And that voice, your real voice, will get you the work initially, and then when you start to develop your voiceover career, you can work on other genres. You can start exploring whether you might be suitable for character voices for games or for animation or for movie trailer or promo. I personally think listening to you would be great for promo. You'd be great for explainer videos on internet websites, and you'd also be very good at commercial voiceovers for I can hear you doing men's products, Gillette shaving foams, or maybe something along those lines, something that people want a real man voicing. And I think you sound really, really good. Your voice sounds genuine. It sounds authentic. And so I would say you would have no problem whatsoever as long as you can deliver the lines. Don't worry about your accent at all. I think that's to be embraced. Certainly in today's climate, having a regional accent, be it America or Europe or UK, it's people who want to hear people with real accents, real voices, and certainly I wouldn't try and disguise it at all, unless, of course, you're doing another character voice or trying to be something else as an actor. But
and a point to add to that. A point to add to that is if you imagine a voiceover artist who's been working for 10 years, who doesn't like to work in his own voice, you would question that, right? That there would be something wrong there. If he would only ever work in character voices, you would think, well, why? Because you've got a nice talking voice. So I think just embrace it, as Peter says, and base your career choices on whether you enjoy the career and not whether you think your voice is good, because it's fine.
I really would like to enjoy the career. It's just obviously I've only just started and I've not got a part in anything professional yet. So it's sort of I'm doubting myself before I've started because, well, I don't really know how to get started because I don't know if to pay for a subscription site if I'm not going to get any work from that because like I listen to other people's demo reels and it kind of scares me off a little bit.
What, because they're good?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what all these courses are for. And as I said, it's not going to be something that all just comes straight away. You do have to work at it. So I wouldn't go onto any subscription sites until you've been in EVMF for a couple of months till you've got your flow working, till your demos are sounding really good, and until you can do a casting clip like one of the ones that we did today there, which actually aren't as difficult as you think they are. It's just because you've not done it yet, so you don't understand the process. But once you've got that process locked in your head, you'll be able to turn those things around, even if it takes you half an hour to do a clip like that, and then start going on the subscription site so that you don't waste your money in advance.
Do you have your own
Thanks,
studio?
guys.
Do you have your own studio at home?
It's quite cramped quarters, to be honest. I mean, my own studio is basically my bedroom at the minute.
That's okay.
This isn't the microphone that I record on. It's just a gaming headset. It's not the best microphone, but it kind of gets me by. I'm recording in Audacity at the minute. It's the only program that I've got. I'm not sure if to spend money on, a professional one, but it's getting me by for what I'm doing so far.
What kind of microphone is it? First of all, is it a dynamic mic or is it a condenser microphone? Do you know what it is?
It's basically a USB mic, a Blue Snowball. Blue Snowball, I think.
Yeah,
it's
that's
called.
fine. That's fine. It's fine for you at the moment. It's not going to be fine.
Yeah, it's a good entry level.
It's an entry level microphone, and it's fine for demo, and it's fine for smaller internet projects, things like that. But it's not going to bring the best of you out. I mean, it's fine. I wouldn't worry about that at the moment. Snowball USB mic, perfectly good. What I'd be more concerned with trying to get right is the recording environment. So I'd need. What you can do is post up a photograph onto the site, onto the EVMF. Let us have a look at it, and we can advise you whether it looks right or how we would suggest you could improve your recording environment. And also post up maybe a little sample for us to listen to. It doesn't have to be an all singing, all dancing production by any means. Just record your voice so we can hear your voice, and B, your recording space, so we can advise you as to whether that should be or how you could improve that, if indeed it needs to be improved at all. It may be fine.
That's what I was thinking.
Great.
I was thinking about putting some voice clips on, but I didn't know if to wait until I finish, like the voice reel course or something like that first that you've got posted up there.
I would just start recording.
Okay.
Even if you're not sending it to us, just start recording. Listen to it. The more you do it, you'll hear yourself improve. And then when you're comfortable, then start posting things, and we can start giving you a critique and finding areas to push yourself in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Right.
guys.
Okay, you're very much welcome. Okay, so that's the end of the session for today. I think we're a little bit over time. If anybody's got any more questions, please post them in the forum, and we will answer them next time. In the meantime, I hope you have a lovely voice. We do. Peter's pointing downstairs.
Yeah,
Pointing
Robert's put up a nice little link to edgestudio.com script library. That's a great library of scripts. They've got loads of scripts in there. So if you want to practice anytime, just log on there and pick a script and read it to your heart's content. Great for sending up to EVMF for our evaluation. So.
Do we have that in the recommended sites, Peter?
Oh, I think I'll put it up there. Or Robert could put it up there now if you feel so inclined, Robert, so everybody can see that on the.
I'll do it myself.
We have an area for external resources. That would be a great one to add in there. And also transcribing from teleads, says Oliver. Yeah, you can do that too, or just literally just record stuff off TV and transcribe your own script. There's no fixed way of doing this. Just the thing is just to start doing it, Daniel. Start recording. Let us hear you. We'll give you feedback. You go away and you do it again. We go through maybe 4, 5, 6 revisions of that until we get we'll get you to a place where you should be, and then you can take it from there. But there's no point in hanging back.